Time now for another In the Legal Know. Vincent J. Russo is here to help you keep the peace in your family when it comes to dividing up personal property. Now, too often, after the death of a loved one, there are fights over things. Vincent is here with advice on how to avoid those fights. And thank you for being here. This, again, very important topic. So what are those things that families do fight over, unfortunately?
Yeah, unfortunately, families will fight over objects, things that are what we call tangible personal property. And tangible personal property is personal property that you can touch, feel, and move. So let's just start with that, and we'll pull up a list. And on that list would be household furnishings, cars, jewelry, works of art. Now, works of art, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder, right? Memorabilia, collectibles. So, you know, these are the items that an individual has, and they have a lot of meaning and value to family members. And often the parent may dismiss the value of those items and not really think it through. But when they pass, it can often lead to family disputes.
Right. So now is the time to think about that. And how should someone leave that personal property in their will?
All right. So I'm going to start with a little story. And the story is of a family, Joe and Mary, who have 3 children. And their 3 children are me, let's get along, and I don't care. And the will says, very simply, I'm going to name all 3 children as executors, and I'm going to leave the tangible personal property equally to them. So, Colleen, how is that going to work?
I know.
The 3 of them have to get in a room as executors and make all the decisions. Bad idea. They set up a meeting to get together, and guess who doesn't show up? I don't care. He doesn't show up. And now what do? They got 2 of them. So it would be better to have 2 executors or even 1 executor chosen. Now, they do get together. They're the executors. How do you divide an item of jewelry into thirds? How do you value the property? And there's sentimental value and real value. And so it's going to be really hard. Me. Mm-hmm. He's going to want to take control over the situation and get those items that he wants. Let's get along. She's going to want to just like make sure it's fair, right? And make sure she gets what she's entitled to. And I don't care, doesn't care. But then maybe, you know, he comes out of the woodwork and cares about a single item that you're shocked. Like, yeah. Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, there's a lot of families out there right. Going right now. Oh,
so,
yeah.
You know, I think of the Smothers Brothers, you know, Mom liked you best.
Yeah, right.
And those are the kind of arguments that come up
yeah.
after parents pass away.
All right, so, you know, how do we avoid that? Okay,
so avoiding disputes, I have some suggestions. First, write a letter of instructions. That's a really good one. You can write up a list of the items and who you want to receive those items. And certain states allow you to incorporate that list into your will. In New York, there's no incorporation by reference. So it wouldn't be legally binding in New York if you did a letter of instructions, but it's basically saying, this is what I want to have happen. Tag items. Maybe underneath the items, you put a name, literally. Or you assign a color to each child and put a colored dot underneath the objects. Give gifts during lifetime. Give it away.
Yeah.
You know, let them enjoy it and you get the joy of giving. Liquidate the assets. Perhaps you want to sell some of these assets. They're not important enough to keep. And maybe it would unclutter your house some. Give clear instructions in your will. I think that's the most important thing that one could do is be clear in the will. Maybe you got to bring in a mediator to help out, or have an independent fiduciary. Don't pick any of the children. Have someone you trust, another family member or friend, be the executor.
Okay, if some of that was not done. So how do, you know, the kids are they're getting together. How do they divide up their parents' personal property?
Okay, so we'll start with the most important step, and that is to have clear instructions in the will. So the will can say, for example, we're going to do a lottery. and each child will pick an item, one at a time, and do it as a lottery. The will can say that if the children don't get along after 6 months, the executor decides. Or the will could say after 6 months, if they can't choose the items properly and get along, then they're to be sold.
Wow, interesting.
So the will would really be the starting point. Communication is key.
Yeah.
Among the family members, and that can be difficult.
Definitely. Well, how do you deal with the me
yes.
member, who might be the greedier member of the family?
Yeah. So the greedier member of the family, I would say first, have empathy. Try to understand where they're coming from. Don't rush to decision making. Perhaps you want to just, step away and before decisions are made. And if necessary, bring in an outsider. Bring in an outsider. Maybe that's counsel representing the estate or a trusted friend to kind of help out.
Well, I know you represent executors of
Right.
estates. So, what do you say to the executor who's handling these disputes?
Yes, and we're often in that mode of advising the executors. So here are some strategies for resolving disputes. First, as I said earlier, open communication. Make sure you're talking to the family members. Don't keep them in the dark, because if they're out there and they don't understand what's going on, then there's distrust that could come out of it. Understand the estate plan. What does the will say? And make sure it's being followed. Bring in the attorney, the professional, to help out. Keep a focus on what's best for the family. Let's keep everybody together. Let's end up where we're still a family after this process. And explore settlement options. Be willing to negotiate a settlement.
Okay. Yeah. You always have resources on your website. You want to send everybody there in case they need some more information?
Sure. We have a guide on trust and estate administration at vjrussolaw.com/guides.
Okay. So important. Keep the peace in our families. You're dealing with a loss. You don't want to make it worse after we've lost a loved one. Vincent, thank you so much today.
My pleasure.